Hello and welcome to How to Be a Money Magpie, the podcast from MoneyMagpie.com. I'm money expert Jasmine Birtles, the founder of MoneyMagpie.com.
And I'm Annie Thorpe, the content editor for MoneyMagpie.com.
This is the third episode of our new podcast series, How to Be a Money Magpie, which is a series that looks at the many and varied ways that you can be clever with money without even trying. Being a money magpie is about having a richer life, and we help everyone do this by putting money in its place. We don't fear it or revere it. We just spend it smartly, save and invest it, share it, importantly, and keep our eyes out for fun ways to make more of it. And it does have to be fun because we believe in living and living well. It doesn't matter what everyone else says. We know that there's an abundance of good for everyone. You just need to know where to look for it.
And not only that, we want you to be part of it too. In each episode, we're sharing your post of the week, where your best tips are read out from our social media and our message boards. We're also here to answer your questions, so feel free to post your burning questions on the podcast thread on our forum.
So far in our series, we've looked at the topical issue of holidays, how to have one in these odd times, and how to get the best deals, thanks to top travel expert and friend of Money Magpie, Simon Calder. And we've also found out how to get free money from grants and special funds that are open to all.
And this week, we're going to find out how to be even cleverer with your money than you already are. Yes, you are. By finding out the easy way to get better at maths. No, don't switch off. It's about maths, but it's easy maths. Clever ways to do quick calculations, even if you've always been a duffer at numbers. I certainly have. Because being comfortable with maths can materially boost your money. You don't have to be a maths genius, just okay at it.
Yes, and we're going to find out how to do this from our guest. And when I say we, I mean I, because there are a lot of tips I'm hoping to get. So say hello to our guest, author and maths evangelist, Rob Eastaway, whose latest book is called Maths on the Back of an Envelope. Welcome, Rob.
Lovely to be with you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to ask the first question, and this is for a friend. You understand? If one never really got comfortable with maths at school, for example, and one is now an adult, is there really, honestly, any hope of being able to make quick calculations in your head without getting it wrong all the time? Just asking for a friend, of course, there.
Well, of course, the answer is yes, but don't expect it to happen instantly. I think actually many adults do themselves down about how good they ever were with numbers. I think most of us had some competence at some stage, but then maths got difficult and it all got frightening and so on. So, and often actually what you hear with adults is if they can do things with numbers, that's just common sense. But if they can't do it, then that's maths. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling failure. So believing, look, I can do something and it's just going to be a matter of practice, because most people, frankly, within a couple of years, even of leaving school, have become rusty with dealing with basic arithmetic. So just weaning yourself off a calculator and getting the idea of practicing a bit, see what you can do, and you can begin to remind yourself, well, I can at least do that. So yes, everyone can improve, like improving your physical fitness.
Really helpful attitude, as you say, because I think, we can all do more than we really think we can. But are there any special techniques that mathematicians like you know that we could learn to do, a bit of clever adding, particularly dividing? If you're dividing, say, 52 into 12, the other way around, I think, how do we do that again? I have to get a pencil and paper out.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, actually, number one thing, although I think it's great to be able to do stuff in your head because it's quicker and you can do it more impromptu and so on. Actually, it's fine to go back to doing things with fingers and pen and paper and so on to remind yourself. But of course, we would all have learned things like dividing or adding or whatever with a set of little procedures we did. I bet yours are different from mine, but there'll be these half-recalled things like carry one, put it to the next, subtract, but you can't remember that procedure. And if you can't remember it, you say, oh God, I can't subtract. And I actually think there's something to be said for forget the way you were taught it at school. rediscover your own way, because you'll often find adults say, oh, when I was adding, I used to cheat, and I used to, adding 19, I would add 20 and then take one off. I think, well, that's brilliant. That's exactly what you should do. It's quicker, and it's the way that's intuitively right for you. So that's the first thing. Discover your own methods, and maybe try working on paper first. I mean, another thing I would say, let's say you've got £821, it's got to be shared between 23 people for some reason. I would say use a calculator. I would. Life's too short. So life's not about knowing how to do those, which is really quite hard. I mean, great if you can do it, and some people can, or some people enjoy doing a bit of long division, fine. But I think it's more important, a number one tip would be learn to get roughly the right answer by rounding. So 821 divided by 23, difficult. But what is 821? It's about 800. That's an easy number. So turning numbers into easy numbers. 23, difficult number. It's about 20. So 800 divided by 20. Now, still quite challenging for some people, but you've got to remember how to do it. But actually, that you can do in your head. It's the same as 80 divided by 2, which is 40, which you may or may not have been able to do yourself comfortably, but with practice, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So actually making numbers simple and getting comfortable with the idea of the exact number, my calculator can do that, but the rough number, that's the one that's going to get me through life to see if I've got a good deal or whatever. So learn to round and get comfortable with rounding. And realizing £17.99, it's about £20, easy number. And the other tip I would say is learn to double and halve in your head. Practice doing that, because doubling and halving can get you a long way. I'll give you one other tip. I bet when you were taught to add up and subtract at school, like I was, you were told to work from the right. You do the units first and then work leftwards. And that's probably, if you had a pen and paper, how you would still do it. But actually, in real life, it's often easier and quicker and gives you a better sense if you start from the left. What's 843? Take away 271. Well, let's start with the hundreds. 800 take away 200 is 600. So it's going to be about 600. Do I need to know more detail than that? Okay, we can do the other things. But so there we are. Don't start from the right, start from the left. And that will give you a sense of what the answer is going to be, which is often the most important skill that you're going to need.
And you mentioned sort of real world examples that you will be then able to apply these newly found skills to. Like you mentioned estimating shopping bills in your book. Can you explain a bit more about that, and how once you've actually learned more about doubling and halving and that kind of, and adding and subtracting, how would you go about estimating your shopping bills, or how are these things helpful in real life?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Why do you even need to know to estimate your shopping bill? Because after all, the cashier is going to do it for you anyway. And I suppose there's two important reasons. One is, before you get to the till, you might actually say, well, look, what was my budget? 100 quid. Have I gone over that yet? Because I might be very embarrassing to go back and take things back because I've overspent. So there's that factor. And also, not necessarily Sainsbury's, but in other situations, people do get it wrong. They do a wrong calculation at a restaurant or whatever. It's kind of good to say that number doesn't look right. So those are practical reasons why this is handy to do. Again, what I would say is that tip I gave you earlier on about rounding, I'd say that's the number one tip. It comes back to make the numbers easy. And then the bonus is that this is like a little game. It's a way of practicing your number skills. You can actually do it, and I've done this in the past with my own kids, for example. Let's guess what the bill is going to be, and then they come up with it, and it's £98.23. Oh, we thought it was going to be about 90. Well, it's a game. How close can you get? So no one needs to know you're playing this game, but it's practicing a really helpful skill.
Yeah, so it is really. I mean, everything you're saying is kind of about estimating, rounding up. I mean, this is the way British people think. Because something that I talk about a lot is that we're not happy about maths in this country. In Asia, maths is the cool thing, and the reason we're doing this podcast is because maths and money really are very strongly connected. If the better you can get at maths, the more it helps with your money. But so it's interesting that you're saying that the way we tend to think, which is, oh, it's about the price of a Mars bar, or it's about the size of whales, or it's about a handful. That's what we don't really do numbers. So that is actually okay.
Well, actually, I mean, there's a variety of things you can do, but in the end, many conversions are roughly doubling, multiplying by 10, dividing by 2, and so on. So, I mean, at the moment, euros in particular, they're 1.1 today. Goodness knows what they'll be for the pound, but they're roughly equivalent. So actually, depending on just how detailed if that's costing 100 euros, well, it's a bit under £100 then, but it's close to £100. That's close-ish. The US dollar is actually in a tricky 1.3-ish kind of zone, which is not the easiest place, but still, that's 1 1/3. So add a third of £100. What's that in dollars? A third of 100. Well, in fact, in that case, it's going to be easy. It's going to be $130. But very often, if the conversion is 180 or 205 or whatever, then double the pounds to get the dollars. That will get you in the right ballpark to see if you're being ripped off. I mean, that's the key thing. So again, round those figures and gives you a guideline.
So in many ways, so what you're saying, it sounds like, although maths is a science, I think we're making it more of a science than we should do. Certainly in everyday life, that actually guesstimating is far better than worrying.
It's not only okay, it's vital. And here's the bit of a tragedy. I think that we leave school thinking of maths by and large as a very precise subject. It's something where you get the exact answer. And of course it can be. Real life, however, is fuzzy. Numbers are fuzzy and roughly and this, that, and the other. It's about ballparks. And it's not really a skill that is strongly encouraged at school. Yes, it crops up in the curriculum, but I'm not sure kids would leave school thinking that was the number one important thing they should be doing. They might have left thinking it's working out the length of the side of a triangle, which, to be honest, most people will not do once for the rest of their life. So I sort of private, when I'm talking to teachers or indeed to school pupils, I'm very big on saying this is such a vital skill, and employers will love you for it, and you'll so benefit in real life if you can still do arithmetic like you were taught in primary school, but with real world numbers. And actually, in primary school, you were taught to work out exactly. Now, as long as you know some basics, some basic times tables are handy, and adding easy numbers, making numbers easy, adding them up will cover you in 90% of situations. And of course, you can't always round. Someone does need to know that they're owed £83.50, not about £80. But that's fine. You can roughly work it out. Use a calculator. Use a spreadsheet. That's what I do. That's what most people do. We've all got a calculator available on our phones at all times these days. So there we are. But you've got to know that what you get out of the calculator makes sense, because actually, although we have calculators, the other thing that no one ever talks about is how poor people are at using calculators, including me. Fat fingers, and the wrong number comes out. Hang on a sec. Do I really owe £20,000 for this holiday? No, it's because I put too many zeros into that number. So that's why you need to be able to do it in your head-ish as well.
But that's an interesting thing about accuracy and things like that, because the thing that always gets me, and I think that more people are noticing these days with the current COVID-19 pandemic and things like that, is statistics and averages. And we're seeing a big discussion at the moment about how things are reported, and how do we pick through that information? What should we be looking at when we're looking at averages of things?
Yeah, well, I've got a little rule of thumb, which is whenever anything's talking about, well, particularly any forecasts, this number of cases, or this is going to happen next year, this is what's going to happen to the economy, and their forecast includes more than what are called significant figures, 2 significant figures, in other words, figures that aren't zero. So, next year, house prices are going to go up by £7,406. just be suspicious. There is no way that anyone can know anything, within 10%. So frankly, most newspaper stories would be more responsible if they only quoted numbers to one significant figure. 500 people have been made redundant would be a sad story, but as opposed to 523 are going to lose their jobs, because that number is a fuzzy number. They're not exactly sure. And there will be all sorts of financial forecasts. House prices next year will go up by 3.8%. Nobody knows. Yeah, they might, but they might go up by 7.2, and they might go down by 4.8. Realizing that numbers that are quoted in the news are almost always uncertain.
Yeah, because you're talking about maths education and everything, and this is something that we all I wring my hands about. It's one of the things that I bemoan, together with the lack of money education in schools, etc. But is there a way that we can help our children get good at maths while we ourselves are learning? I mean, I'm thinking, for example, when I was growing up, it was not considered cool in schools to learn multiplication tables by rote. I wish we had. It would have been much easier for me if I'd just done it, 10 tens of this, just like that. That would have been better. Is there something we can do for ourselves and for our kids at the same time to make us all better at maths?
Well, yes. I mean, interestingly enough, that problem doesn't exist anymore. Times tables are drilled into children till they're coming out their ears now at primary school. So there are all sorts of tests. Other things have gone by the wayside. Although they, by and large, they learn them when they're 11. By the time they're 16, they are largely, getting rusty again, because they put that behind them. But absolutely, I think having children can be one of the best ways for adults to get more into dealing with numbers, because children are very forgiving and you can learn with them. But yeah, for any parent, thinking about what maths is, I think most parents probably are left with the impression that maths equals homework and equals something where your child gets really upset. I have a slightly controversial alternative view, which is to treat maths as everything except homework. Maths should be something you do, and you do together, and you play together, and you speculate together. So you cook together and you weigh things and say, oh, we're going to need 120 grams of this, and we've only got 100. How many more grams do we need? Posing questions out into the air as if you kind of don't know and you want your child to help. Things like that make it into a collaborative exercise. And then when you're out and about, let's guess who's nearest to the bill, just like I was talking about before. Or who can be the first one to spot a number between 50 and 60 on a bus as we are walking into town. All these kind of things, or on car journey, even better. I mean, I used to play with my kids an animal game where you got 1 point for spotting sheep, 2 for cows, 10 for a horse, 100 points for a llama, and just a running total. And you've got a purpose. You're occupying your kids on the way to grandma's, and they are adding numbers as they go through. It becomes a thing to play, and it doesn't become a thing about failure, getting it wrong, red mark. And I think confidence building and seeing how numbers relate to the real world are 2 essential things that homework don't necessarily do. It's so the notion of maths as a thing you play, I think, is should be pushed more.
Definitely. Gosh, I'd have been much better at maths if I'd done it that way. And finally, Rob, I know in your book, and I'll mention it again, Maths on the Back of an Envelope, you've got all sorts of just really fun, daft little things, including, and I wonder if you could give us a few, daft facts, including one about the word like. I love this.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the idea of just working things out, just as a bit of background, when I was a kid and we went to a football match, say, before the match, my dad would always say, how many people do you think there are in the crowd today? Or what, if we were out at a restaurant, how much money do you reckon they're making this evening? So he got us playing these thought experiment games to practice our maths, a bit of fun. So in the book, I've got a whole load of, some of them serious, some of them more lighthearted thought experiments, one of which was how often does a typical let's say, American teenager, but it happens to Brits as well, say the word like in a year. And as someone who has a teenager now, in fact two, and I sort of hear conversations between teenagers, the word like crops up an awful lot. And you think, well, yeah, they must say it a lot. So I thought I'd take it a bit further and actually do some figuring out. So I sort of overheard a couple of conversations, looked out for a couple of how teenagers chat on vlogs and so on. I found 2-minute segment, discovered that that it's very common for teenagers to use the word like every 10th word. So 10% of the words in their conversation are the word like, and you can sort of say, well, how many minutes are they talking a day or whatever. It's quite possible there are many teenagers across the world who say the word like 1,000,000 times a year, which is a heck of a lot of time spending. Like, it's become a filler word. We all have filler words. I'm sure I have mine, and everything else, but like particularly has taken off in the last 20 years as a filler word. But there we are.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Rob. And Rob's book, Maths on the Back of an Envelope, is available in the shops and online.
Yes, thank you, Rob. And now our producer John has been scouring our message boards and social media for the best tips of the week. John, what have you found?
Hi, Annie. So yes, indeed, I've been chatting to a couple of Money Magpies who got in touch, as you say, to our social media pages, and they've shared some of their top tips on maths and money. Have a listen to this.
My name is Joseph Hagan. I'm a publicist. I own Streamline PR Limited, and I'm from London. I don't believe you need to be good at maths to be good with money. I don't consider myself that much of a mathematician, but I think I'm quite good with money. I always try to make sure that what we have incoming in terms of money is greater than what's outgoing. So in regards to financial planning, I just try and make sure we're not overspending. In my personal life, I try to do the same. Like I kind of only buy stuff if I think it's necessary, or if I would save for a certain thing. If I needed a holiday, like I would allocate money towards that, or save and put it away and look at it and say, okay, well, this money is for holiday, so I can offset that. Like I try to live within my means.
My name is Denny Smith. I live in Caterham in Surrey, and I run a couple of businesses. I have a hair salon in South Croydon, Vintage 62, and I have an online dating company, Old Style Dating. I'm useless at maths. I'm very good at history, though. Not that that actually comes in handy at all with either of these businesses. I could definitely be more sensible, but I think if you get a good accountant, and my accountant is brilliant, and she deals with both businesses, so she sort of reins me in. She'll say to me, don't do this, don't spend any more, don't do that. So yeah, I don't think you necessarily need a degree. And the most annoying thing as well that I've learned is the amount of people that give you a price for something, and then when they send their invoice, there's VAT added on. They just seem to forget about the VAT. So that's quite annoying.
Yeah, that's definitely annoying. But personally, maths has never been a strong point of mine, but I think I'm fairly good with managing my own money. Anyway, just to say, I'm always looking to chat to Money Magpies, so if you've got any top tips you'd like to share with us, get in touch either on social media or obviously via our message boards on moneymagpie.com. It'd be great to have a chat with you and feature you on a future episode.
Oh, thank you, John. Actually, I was just listening to that first one. I noticed 3 likes. Did you hear that, Rob?
You see, they pass you by. You don't know. Well spotted. You see, you're now tuned in
Yes.
to likes. I don't know. I didn't notice them.
And also the VAT element, I do agree with that. It's fine if you are VAT registered, but if you're a business or a person that's not VAT registered, and somebody quotes you an amount net of VAT, it is a bit of a nasty shock when you get an extra 20% on. But you've got something, Rob, in your book where you can work out what the net amount is from an amount with VAT, because that's a little bit trickier.
Yeah, it is. Although, so something costs, £250, including VAT. What's the VAT element? Actually, unless you're VAT registered, and so extracting the VAT is not something most people have to do that much. Adding VAT is a much more common thing, and that's much easier. So adding 20%. I mean, the idea VAT 20%, what I would do is just add 10% and double it. So 10% of 150 is 15, double it, 30. But extracting the VAT, there is a shortcut which I use on my spreadsheets, which is simply to say how much VAT is there in, let's give myself an easy number, £180. How much VAT is there in that? Divide by 6. 180 divided by 6 is 30. So £180 including VAT has £30 VAT in it. So it was 150 plus £30 VAT. So dividing by 6, you still might want to use a calculator for it, but it's a nice shortcut for saying what the VAT is. It only works when VAT is 20%. So don't. If the chancellor changes that, which is inevitably going to happen at some point, you have to discover other rules. And the reason why it works, you can explore why it's not magic, but yes, I actually use that on my column in my VAT spreadsheet. There is a work out the VAT content of this, divide by 6.
That is great. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rob. See, I can imagine if we were talking to you for the morning, we'd sort our accounts out really quite quickly. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much, Rob. And that's it for today. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both is, of course, at Money Magpie. And if you have a story you'd like us to feature, or you have a burning question, head over to our message boards and put a question there, because John is trawling those all the time for the best tips, best questions.
And even if you don't want to be featured on the podcast, our message boards are a great resource. If you post a question, we will come on and answer it, as well as the Money Magpie community will surely get involved. We want to hear your money tips too, so make sure you post those.
Today's episode was presented by me, Jasmine Birtles, with Annie Thorpe and our producer, John Offord. The music was composed for Money Magpie by Thomas Hewitt Jones.